Jeremy from jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy this channel, enjoy these live streams, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. In addition to the live streams, you get access to a digital archive where you can read my comic books online. And you get access to a Patreon-exclusive Discord server where we share artwork, works in progress, feedback, tips, process, and more. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, blog post delivered right to your inbox about what I'm watching, what I'm reading, what's inspiring me, work in progress animated GIFs, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to pick up physical copies of my comic books, I just realized normally I've got them sitting right here, and I forgot to grab my comic books. This is what happens when you take a couple of weeks off. You get out of your rhythm. You lose your flow, and you're like, wait a minute, something's not right here. Anyway, you can pick up copies of my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. It's a self-contained done-in-one story. Or you can pick up my most recent project, Morningstar. It's a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, script excerpts, thumbnails, character designs, page layouts, photo reference. I basically show you how to put together the comic book. And as I mentioned earlier about the Patreon exclusive live stream, we are doing another session of Art Book Study Group this coming Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you want to get in on that and catch it live, we'll have the Discord voice channel open so you guys can actually talk instead of just type chatting. You can actually talk directly to me during the stream. And if you happen to miss that, the replay is always available. And the replays for all of the previous live streams are also available. So you can go back and there's an archive, hundreds of hours of educational live streaming where we're doing deep dives in some of the best art books around. So let's get into it. I see in the comments, Omar is already here. And Art Stuff is in the chat. Hello, Art Stuff. Omar, good to see you. Omar says, could you draw a T-Rex, please? What do you want the T-Rex doing? And actually, Omar, here's a question for you. Is it because you're having difficulty drawing T-Rexes and you want some help with how to draw them? I ask because I can do a breakdown of how to draw a T-Rex and give tips on how I would approach it, but dinosaurs unto themselves are not something I typically draw. Like, you know, some people are into mecha and robots. Some people are into dinosaurs. Some people like drawing cars. For me, most of my stuff, whether it's standalone illustrations, you know, I like doing comics. So most of my illustrations are about sort of a narrative sense of storytelling. Like even this piece that I was getting ready to work on, I mean, it's very much a story going on in here, and that it's Medusa surrounded by, you know, stone statues of you know, Olympian gods. So tell me a little bit more about why you would like to see a T-Rex. And while we talk about that, or a mecha T-Rex. But yeah, Omar, tell me more about why you want to see a T-Rex. What is it about the T-Rex that interests you? And while I am waiting for, he also says, or a mecha T-Rex. While I'm waiting for him to type, I'm looking at I had started this illustration a while ago, and I'm just going back and looking at my thumbnails and trying to get a sense of what it is that looking at it now, these thumbnails don't really do it for me. None of them really scream, this is the right one. And I kind of want to go back in. I'm just trying to figure out how to get this to look like something that I really want to paint. Let's see here. Omar says, I love dinosaurs. I want to be a I think it's this plantologist, but I think you meant paleontologist, and it just auto-corrected. But let's see here. Well, let's see here. Dinosaurs. I guess I could give it a shot. Well, I guess what I'm asking is, do you just want to see a picture of a T-Rex, or do you want me to show you how to draw T-Rexes? Because generally speaking, you know what I'm more interested in, let me show you how to draw a T-Rex. That way, going forward, you can draw your own T-Rexes. Because that's more of the approach I take. As opposed to just doing a sketch on request, I prefer more of the educational aspect. So open a new document here. So the first thing I recommend when you're drawing anything is switch brushes here. So the brush that I am using is just slightly darker than the background. And that's just so that as I start to sketch in here, I can get, I can kind of very loosely block things in. Let's see here. I see Chris is in the chat. It says, hey, Jeremy, good to see you, Chris. Thanks for popping by in the live stream. Per request from Omar, I am going to do a little dinosaur demo. So there's two things. First off, looking at things in profile is a really great way to understand their major shapes. And that helps you plan out if you want to go and do something more dynamic. In fact, because of this, I'm going to switch to a darker color. So if we look at a T-Rex from a profile, there's sort of, first I want to just do a line to get sort of the, why? It's my stylus not working all of a sudden. That is the weirdest thing. My stylus just went nuts. And it doesn't look like it's one of those Apple Pencil battery low things. Let's see here. Nope, the battery is working. Or the pencil is working on here. Let me just quit Procreate and start again. There we go. By the way, Chris, if you have any questions, it looks like I'm doing demos today. I was going to work on an illustration, but depends on how long this T-Rex takes. I may come back to the illustration that I was going to work on. But James is in the chat. Hey, good to see you, James. How you doing? Yeah. It looks like it's not the stylus. It looked like it was something buggy with Procreate. So quitting Procreate seemed to fix it. And that was the first thing I wanted to check, was just going out of Procreate and seeing if the stylus was working, and it did. So I was like, all right, it's got to be something with Procreate, which normally Procreate works very, very well. So occasionally, any app will have some sort of bugs. So T-Rexes. Let's start with just the simple gesture. So we know that T-Rexes, a lot of dinosaurs are basically built like chickens. Go something slightly lighter. So if I just do sort of an S curve down, I'm just trying to figure out, all right, so let's say that this S curve is kind of like the spine going into the tail. We've got the legs coming forward to those big, drumstick knees, leg coming back, feet coming down, claws going forward. And then up here, he's got his tiny T-Rex arms. Now, I will tell you first off, I want to correct the proportions because he is too upright. And I know that they can stand upright, but I think really a T-Rex should probably be something a little bit more lower profile. I made his legs too long. So let's say his head is up here. Tiny arms. So we've got him as a profile. And now I want to start building the major shapes. So let's start with the rib cage. And really his knees are going to be up very close to his body. Got his neck coming up. And then, again, not a dinosaur expert, but from the pictures I've seen and from movies, Jurassic Park and all that, T-Rexes tend to have really big heads. So in relation to his body, I'm just going to make the mass of the head sort of large. And these primitive shapes that I'm using, it's not like I'm using a box or a circle. It's kind of like a tapered box. Tapered meaning just smaller at one end, the mouth end, and then wider where it connects to the neck. And almost a similar shape for the body, except I'm ending it in a rounded shape. So it's that tapered shape plus a ball. But in addition to that, attached to the back is the tail. So it's almost another reverse tapered shape that ends up going into a point. So these are kind of the major shapes that you would build a T-Rex out of. Let's make this a little shorter. Started making his tail too long. Let's see here. Oh, James has a comment about Eye of the Gods, my first graphic novel. He says, I came across my copy of Eye of the Gods last week when I was looking through some stuff. He said, I've also been working with organs, as you suggested. I've been getting some interesting results with livers and faces. He said, organs with cancer is something I've been looking into as well. That's right. He was working on doing designs with faces that were much more, distorted and creepy looking. He said, organs with cancer is something I've been looking into as well. I've been adding here and there, but I may just keep that to a minimum depending on what the look I'm going for. Oh, he says I've been adding hair. Yes, good to see. Yeah, you know what? I'm glad that was helpful. I mean, a lot of times we just need something that's a little bit more in the abstract, a little bit different way of looking at a problem we're trying to figure out, whether it's designing the shapes of heads or characters' bodies. But yeah, whether it's looking at organs or any type of thing, could be looking at something from nature. It's a way to say, oh, what if I were to try and draw my character or my character's body or head like this? it kind of frees us up to just use our imaginations a little bit more. So this body still doesn't look perfectly, T-Rexy to me, but like I said, I think this is definitely the first time I've drawn a dinosaur in a live stream, but I have not drawn a T-Rex in a good long time. But anyway, coming back in here now, let me go with something slightly darker, maybe a dark red, so that you can see what I'm doing over the body. So really, at this point, I'm drawing cylinders with an extremely shallow profile. So these are cylinders, but they're cylinders that we're looking at from the side. So there we've got sort of our general shape of a T-Rex. We've got a body, we've got the head, we've got his little tiny arms. And just so you know, this whole thing that I'm building, like the way that I built the body there, and I'm going to show you in a larger demo when I draw it in a pose. For instance, that shape that I drew of the torso, this tapered, the body, that tapered cylinder that's ending in a sphere. If you were to look at this from a 3/4 angle, and just do it right next to it. It's really just drawing a box, and it's wider at the bottom end than it is at the top. And then it's got that sphere on the back. Because the idea is you want to be able to take this shape and you want to turn it in any direction. So in the same way that you could draw a rectangle from the side, you want to be able to imagine what this rectangle looks like turned, to this angle, or that angle facing the other way. Because if you can imagine what a box looks like at a different angle, then you can imagine what different imaginary forms, like the body of a T-Rex, would look like at different angles. And if you can imagine what the body would look like at different angles, then you can draw a T-Rex from different angles. So the lesson here is get big. Learn to turn forms in your imagination. Let's see here. James says, I usually think of dinosaurs more in a fantasy sense with armor and weapons. See, that's pretty badass. I totally should put. I'm gonna give this guy a sword and a helmet. He says, but it's good to go body to it's good to go to the body to get the body going first. Yeah, well, I mean that's how I draw everything. I'm always working out the understructure with figures, whether it's comics or creatures, whatever. It's like getting the structure first and then working out the actual details. Byron is in the chat. Hey, good to see you. And my buddy Dan Plagle, how you doing? Good to see you, Dan. Hope you're doing well. Dan says Jeremy is a shape master. Class is in session. We're all going to learn something today, dude. Thank you. You are quite the shape master yourself. Those shapes are usually pretty curvy, sexy. But you are a shape master in your own right. Good to see you. So all of this to come back to, let's say that we were drawing a T-Rex and we're doing it from a very low angle. So now, let's say I'm imagining our horizon is super low. In fact, let me raise this up a little bit so I've got some room to draw here. A super low horizon. And we are below the T-Rex. So that spine that I drew, let's say the head is up here. We've got that spine swooping down. And then have that tail come back up. So what I'm trying to imagine is if we were to look at a box, let's say that we are underneath that box, like as if you're going under a bridge overpass. I'm going to go a little bit lighter here. So we've got this big hulking shape that we are looking up at. Even this, I'm gonna. That dark line is throwing me off. I need to come in here and draw super light. So drawing everything inside of a box just helps me figure out the direction the major forms are moving, traveling in. So, Omar, any questions so far? As I'm from what I sketched previously, now that I'm going in here and doing a pose with him. Because first I want you to understand what the structures are that I was working with before coming in and let me get rid of this foot. It's not even the good one anyway. I don't need that. So I want to give myself some room to give him a really big head. So now, because I'm going to have him roaring with his mouth open, I'm going to take that tapered box that I was drawing and I'm going to kind of reverse it so that now the end that's closest to us as the viewer is the bigger end because his mouth is going to be open. Give him his tiny arms. So let's see here. And Art Stuff says, what if the T-Rex had a wizard's tome? Well, James had mentioned giving him armor and weapons. Maybe we give him a shield, and the shield has a bunch of runes on it. And the runes are sort of a protective spell. That way I'm combining the sword, the weapons and armor with the magical tome, almost like the shield itself is the tome. In which case, I'm going to take his clawed hand on this side, and I'm going to rotate it so that he can be holding a shield. And I don't know why, but the fact that he's got tiny arms, I'm wondering if it's if I should give him a tiny little sword like a dagger, or whether I should give him a big ass sword that he would not be able to hold. I don't know which is funnier. So we've got the knee up here, then we've got the leg coming back, we've got it coming forward. Now we'll have this leg. So this is going to be pretty foreshortened. I'm going to have it slightly, actually not slightly above. Let's just go dramatic. Let's just go ahead and have it way above the ground. Now, there's enough stuff, and by stuff I mean forms on top of forms, that I need to go a little bit darker because I'm starting to lose the drawing here. So I'm going to go one notch darker. You know, and this is just similar to, you know, as you're drawing, you start sketching out lightly. And as you move along, you get darker and darker as you refine the illustration. James is like, yeah, Final Fantasy sword, cloud style. I added the cloud style. He said Final Fantasy sword. Yeah, let's go big with the sword. You know, now that I look at this, I feel like the runes, the magical runes, wouldn't really be visible on the inside. So I'm going to go back to the really light that I was using. I'm going to erase this arm, and I'm going to put the shield on the right side, put the sword on the outside, on his left. Well, on his right, my left. So let's say we've got that shield. Just trying to figure out how much, because it makes sense. The whole point of a shield is to protect yourself. So it makes sense for him to be holding, him or her, to be holding the shield more in front of their torso. So I'm trying to figure out the shape of the ellipse. I'm trying to decide how much I want it facing directly towards the viewer versus sort of turned to the side. And the other thing I'm going to do is I am going to change the angle of the T-Rex's head. So let's say we've got the shield here. Get the little T-Rex arms. Turn this angle here so I can really get this sword. James said his talons are viable weapons as well. I'm like, well, shit, at this point, with the sword and shield, his talons are all... Well, he is about to stomp on someone, so he's using his rear talons as weapons. So what I wanted to do was change the angle of his head and tilt him to one side or the other so he wasn't just being straightforward. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get a general sense of direction for that mouth, that head. And it's a little bit challenging because the face should be tapering as it gets closer, because the head shape is going from closed mouth. When it's closed mouth, it's going from big to small, but with open mouth, it's going from small to big. But in addition to that, the mouth kind of tapers, gets narrower. And I think what I'm going to do here is, since we were talking about armor, I'm going to make this whole part of his head like a helmet. So it's just got like a trim running around the edge here, and go a little bit smaller with my brush size. We'll have a little bit around the back of the neck, a little bit of armoring, a little bit of curving plates. In fact, we should just have these curving plates go all the way down the back of the neck. So he's got his, showing a little bit of skin texture there to separate the metal from the organic. And then I don't need to draw rivets. I mean, it kind of needs rivets, but I wanted to have his teeth coming out from underneath the helmet. So he's roaring. And I will tell you that in order to really do this and sell it, I would normally pull reference. Like if this was a full illustration, I would pull reference and go look at T-Rex bones and make sure that I draw teeth that line up with the shape of the teeth in the T-Rex skull. I'm not going to do that here just because this is a quick sketch. But ordinarily, that would always be like once you start getting to the point where you're adding detail, that's when you want to go and you want to grab your reference. Once you like really know what the idea of the illustration is, reference really helps reinforce and sell the concept of whatever it is you're trying to draw. And if you're drawing something that's imaginary and doesn't exist, then it helps to find reference of analogs in our world that are similar. I'm going to put a little plume coming out of the top of his head. So I was trying to figure out what would really make this feel like the top of a knight helmet. I didn't want to add horns to him. I mean, that's another thing is I don't really draw medieval knights very often. So just me thinking about what a knight's helmet looks like, I was sort of saying, well, how do I end this at the top? And again, I'm going to try and reinforce the idea that he's organic versus the helmet, which is metal, by just adding some more scales in the chin. Let's put a little buckle down here. To keep that helmet strapped to his chin. And now I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to go to white. I'm going to draw a bunch of runes around here that are, in theory, supposed to be glowing. I know I could add like a colored glow around this, but I'm just going to keep it black and white for now. So instead of a magical tome, he's got a magical shield. And make these nostril openings a little bit smaller, just so they don't fight too much with the eyes. So yeah, the other arm. Oh, actually, you know what? He should definitely have something guarding his tiny little arm shoulders. So let's put a little bit of plating. On his tiny little shoulders. Let's see, he's got more armor coming across his chest there. A little designs or decorations on the inside of there, his armor. In fact, I mean, that's an interesting design altogether, or like an interesting design project, is to sit and say, all right, take a T-Rex and design a gauntlet for his armor. Because right here, I'm just following the shape of the hand and adding an extra layer of plating on top of it. But realistically, you would have to, if you were doing this for like a concept piece for an illustration or a cover, or if you were designing him for a comic and you wanted to be able to know how to draw him from every angle, you would probably want to have that armor thought out, including the gauntlets. So you pay a lot of attention to the hands in artwork. Designing the helmet and the gauntlet would be good design exercises unto themselves. Forgot to give him a tongue. I don't know why, but it feels important to me. He's pissed off here, drooling and spitting. You know who draws good dinosaurs? Ian McKegg. I was taking a seminar that he was teaching on schoolism. He was doing a webinar, and just watching him doing cool little dinosaur characters. And I think he had a dinosaur that had a mouse with it. That was pretty awesome. His dinosaurs put mine to shame, but I will try to honor him. Byron says, you have your next comic idea now, at least. You know, and it's funny because I've been feeling, this is something I was going to mention in the stream, and I just got caught up with T-Rexes. But it's been a long time since I've been drawing a comic on the stream. And I realized that for the longest time, I didn't want to admit it, but it's because I've had writer's block, which is weird because one of my most popular videos is about writing. And the problem that I have isn't a problem that's solved by the video that I did, because it's not about not having the story structure. It's about the story not being right. And once I sort of admitted to myself that I had writer's block, then I kind of started to loosen up just by acknowledging that it was there. And what I started looking at was, okay, if my problem is not plot and story structure, what is it? And I realized the problem is the character relationships and how they change and grow, or rather, that I hadn't established the character relationships, or hadn't focused on what is the arc of their relationships. So I started focusing on that, and I still have a fair amount of writing to do, but now that I understand what I was missing, I'm getting a lot closer to finishing the story writing and being able to start drawing the comic proper. So it'll still probably be a few more weeks before you see me starting to thumbnail out pages, but I'd rather get the story right and take as long as it needs than to dive in, start drawing a story, and then realize, oh wait, this doesn't work, or I just don't like this story. A lot of people have said that they think it's admirable that I'm able to keep working on projects for a number of years and just stay focused on long term. But the reason why I am able to focus on long term projects is because I don't start until I have the story in a place where I'm going to want to work on it for a number of years. Like, you have to have your story be good enough that you're willing to put in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long it's going to take to finish it. If you don't get your story to that point, then you're going to bail when it gets hard. And it always gets hard. It always gets hard. So never think, oh, well, I'll just do this and knock it out. It'll be no problem. There's always going to be points where you're going to want to give up and not do it. But if you've written a story that is compelling enough that you, as the person who's making it, want to see, even you know how it's going to end, but you want to see that ending. That is what will get you through to completing a project. The scales aren't really necessary. I started putting scales on there, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need that. Or actually, I can switch it back to a lighter color, and I can take the approach that I took with all of these snakes that I was drawing. Draw scales that way. And he should probably have some sort of armor on his knees or his thighs as well. But I think for coming up with this just right off the top of the head, this isn't a bad design. And great timing, too, as we are just about at the top of the hour. right. I think we are almost done with this guy. You know what? He should also. I'm not going to draw it on that. On the leg that's raised, because you're really not going to be able to see what's going on at that angle. But I realize a bunch of people are going to attack his thighs. He's going to be, it's a T-Rex. We're going to be attacking him at his feet and his legs. A bit of armor down there. Finish off that sword. By finish off, I'm just darkening these lines. I don't think that there's a lot of detail I need to go into here. I'm going to put a little guy down here. Little guy down here at the bottom with the spear. He's just like, oh shit. This is my ass. Some boots. These boots were made for getting squished because he's about to get squished. And I'm going to change his eyes. So instead of looking forward, they're looking down at this little guy. Because now that's a story. Hey, what do you guys think? T-Rex in armor, magical shield. As a matter of fact, let's put a face inside of the shield, glowing eyes. I'm going, because I'm like the shield is going to be screaming. Sort of magical demon shield. Yeah, James says a face like a Jason and the Argonauts. Oh. All right, guys. On that note, I think we are going to wrap up this stream. So yeah, I didn't really get very far on the. I didn't do anything on the piece that I was going to work on. But it's a fun little experiment, and hopefully you learned a little bit something about taking primitive shapes and being able to convert them into something more dynamic. So, yeah. All right, guys. Let's call it a day for here. Art Stuff says the T-Rex looks so cool. The person underneath is a goner closed casket. Yeah, he's gonna need some. There's gonna need to be some powerful magic to keep this guy from getting squished. It's like the T-Rex doesn't even need his armor right now. Okay. 47 is good. Good to see you, man. I was just wrapping up. Didn't see you slide in there. He says, I was just lurking. Hard agree about the graphic novel mindset, the grind set. Yeah, you've got to have something that you want to see finished, because there's gonna be points where it's like, oh, it's gonna be hard to keep going. So you have to want it more than anyone else. If you're only doing it because a certain fan wants it or it's what's popular in the market, that's not enough. It's not enough, because doing something because other people want you to, when you feel like it's a drag, that's still not going to do it. It has to be something you want to bring into the world. Oh yeah, James, when you were saying about Jason and the Argonauts, he said that the skeletons and their shields. Okay, but on that note, we're going to call this one a wrap. Thank you everyone for hanging out, for watching, for all the great comments and feedback while working here. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys. You guys make it super fun. This week, for our Patreon subscribers, we're doing another art book study group, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The voice channel on Discord will be open, so if you want to actually talk, with me as opposed to just typing in the chat, you guys can hop on, talk, ask any questions. We're going to be continuing our art book study group sessions where we do deep dives into some of the best art books around, try to suck out all the knowledge we can. We're continuing with our study of Walt Reed's The Figure. We're on a section on heads and drawing different types of heads from the same basic structure. That's what we were doing with the last one, and then we're continuing with that this session. Again, it's for as little as $2 a month. You can join and participate. You also get access to the archive of all of the previous art book study groups. Hundreds of hours of educational art studies from some of the best art books around. It's as little as $2 a month gets you in. You also get access to an online digital archive where you can read my comic books. You get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord server where we share artwork, give each other feedback, tips, art talk, sharing process, and more. We have a whole thread about marketing and publishing. about the business side, threads about writing. That's a new one. We've got all kinds of art talk in there. So head on over, sign up. There's higher tiers for higher rewards, but $2 a month gets you in. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring you creatively, what's inspiring me creatively. You can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you're digitally on Kindle, you go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. It's a self-contained black and white graphic novel. You can also pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It's a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue story. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character designs, thumbnails, script excerpts, page layout, photo reference, and more. I basically show you how I put the entire comic together. So you can check both of those out, amazon.jeremy.net. And if you have not done it already, please hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, if you're new and just popped in, hit that subscribe button. Hop on, join me every week. And guys, thank you so much. Always appreciate it. That's it for now. Go be creative.